What's up, y'all? I'm working on a slip joint folder. Figured I would go live and kind of film a little bit. Get this camera stand set up. Janky thing from Temu. so, so here I got the spring hardened and it's done a temper cycle in the oven. They're just gonna glue it back a little bit. Got the handle scales put together, liners and everything in there. These are pretty simple. I'm just going to torch temper this thing a little bit and kind of make it a little bit softer where I want it. Just going to let that sit and kind of cool off. Like I said, I've done this like 2 or 3 times and I put it in the temper oven, let it kind of normalize, if you will. I'm going to let that cool, and then once the blade comes out, we'll getting this thing shaped. But so the steel I've been using for these folders is 52-100, and from the research that I've done, springs like to be tempered around like 600 to 900 Fahrenheit. My oven doesn't go that high, so I've been doing a quick torch temper, bringing it back to like a deep straw color, and then I've been doing like 410 in the oven with the blade for about an hour and a half, and then bring it out, and then torch tempering the actual spring part of it back to like your purples and blues or whatever. So from what I've read and what I've seen, kind of looked up and did a little bit of research on, those colors are usually around the ballpark of the temperature that we're trying to get. And the test pieces that I've made, they work pretty well. So here's one that I did. This one's just kind of rough and thrown together. I think this is more of a test piece than an actual finished piece. So yeah, I don't have a mic. My mic is crap. I dropped it in the water bucket. So but yeah, we're working on some little folding knives. Here's a test piece that I did. Working on another one. Handle scales here. It's white, red, and this is rosewood. Should look pretty cool once it's cleaned up and shaped to the spring. And the blade, so the blade's in the temper. It's got about another 15-20 minutes. I'm gonna let it ride, and then we'll get everything mocked up and start drilling our pinholes and stuff like that. So it shouldn't take too much longer. I just wanted to get this thing kind of tempered back to where it would be softer. So I'm gonna Scotch-Brite this thing off and do one more temper cycle. So grinder's kind of loud, heads up. I've got these colors on there. I'm going to just Scotch-Brite them off so I can see the temper colors. Alright, now that we're at shiny metal again, we'll go back over to the vise. We'll torch it one more time just to make sure, and then I'll let it air cool. I want the spring to be springy, I guess, not as fragile and hard. So we'll just torch temper it up a little bit, get it to a deep straw color, and let it cool. So letting that cool. The outside of it's going to be obviously hotter than the inside of it. You get it a little bit hotter than it's supposed to be. It's not a big deal unless you get it way hotter. As it kind of soaks into the metal, it'll soften it up a little bit to where the spring should be strong enough to hold the blade open and stuff like that, but not to the point where you can't open and close it. I lost the one I was playing with. Oh, here it is. So on this one, the spring is a little bit too soft. So it's very easy to open, and it does lock open, and it's very easy to close, and it does lock closed, but it's just a little bit on the soft side for what I would want. So I didn't make this one as thin, and I think that's the issue. I don't have enough resistance. Kind of trying to find that happy medium between a lock that stays open nice and tight, but also isn't too difficult to close and open. So I'll let that cool, and I guess I might go grab the blade and just go ahead and start shaping these. I thought about drilling a pinhole and getting this thing set up, but I really need the blade to kind of make sure it's in the right spot. I don't make any mistakes. I could start cleaning these up. I'll just wait. So once that cools off, I'll grab the blade, and then we'll work on that kind of together. So, but yeah, I don't know if any of you guys in here are knife makers or like knives or whatever, but that's pretty much what I do on this channel. I'm a custom knife maker. Right now I'm making a bunch of slip joint folders. I'll go grab another one real quick and show you. So I got here's one that I have to ship tomorrow. This one is rosewood, black epoxy, an orange liner, some black micarta, and it came out pretty nice. I really like the chunky handles. They look a little bit more like classic, I guess, versus like a really small one like that. So, but honestly, the smaller ones are a little bit easier to make because you don't have as much material to kind of work with and stuff. So the spring is smaller and everything is a little bit more simple to pull off. With these, you got to figure out pretty much how to make the blade and spring and everything the size you want it without it being too thick to open with your finger. See, that one's a lot stiffer than that one, which is fine. But got that one. I got a couple other ones that I've done. There's two of them up on the website at littleriverforge.com. Basically, I just started doing the folders again. I haven't done any in about a year. It's been since I've actually made them, moved to a new shop and stuff like that, and just didn't really have the need, I guess, to make them. Didn't really have the demand. But I recently started my new storefront on the website, so I figured I'd make up some folders to put on the storefront. I have a couple of fixed blades up on there. I've got this little Damascus, I guess it's like a petty knife or something like that, or a little drop point hunter, or whatever you want to use it for. I got it done. I'm gonna re-hand sand it. I don't like the finish on it, but I got a couple things that I'm working on. But there's a bunch of stuff up on the website. Couple of fixed blades. I had a chef knife on there. It's sold, and then I've got a couple of chef knives that I'm in the process of working on. I got to make some handle scales and stuff like that for the mono steel chef, and then I have a mosaic Damascus chef that I really have no idea what I want to do as far as handle material goes on that one. So, but yeah, I'm gonna go grab the blade, and then we will start doing some fit ups, cutting the handle material, and actually making the knife. And I'll quit running my jaw. Anyways, I got the blade here. It's still really hot. I'm gonna let it cool off, and we'll start working on the handle material for it. The scales are, this is some white, like cast resin epoxy, red that's a little bit opaque, I guess you can see through it just a little bit, and then some rosewood. So I'll go over to the grinder and I'll clean these up a little bit while we're waiting on that to cool off, waiting on the spring and everything to cool off, and then we'll start drilling some holes and putting it together. First thing I'm going to do is, while I got the Scotch-Brite belt on, I'm going to clean these liners up a little bit. They're just easier to hold when they're bigger. I'm gonna go, I'm gonna swap over to probably 60 grit to start getting these scales squared up. Get them nice and square and even, and then after that we can start putting our blade and everything on there and kind of mocking up the fit up and figuring out where we want everything to be so we can start drilling holes. So there's that. Go to drill press. What I'm going to do is drill my, I've been contemplating on doing the center pivot hole first so I can get a better clamp on the spring, but I'm not really sure. This is still trial and error for me. I haven't quite decided on what's the best approach for it. Blade cooled off. Spring. All right. So how I like to do it is I take usually the smallest handle scale, I lay it on there with spring, blade, kind of figure out where it wants to live. For the sake of testing, I'm going to drill the center pin first. Get you a better spot where you can kind of see what's going on. arm is probably going to be in the way, but I lost the blade. Pin. Now we can find where the blade wants to live. I'm going to clamp that spring just to make sure it doesn't move. Alright, now that we have those two holes drilled, we can set our spring tension on the blade. So we'll pop this together. And let me grab a pencil real quick. So, how I do it, I do mine, I basically will mark my bottom of this all the way around. Then I also mark the top of the spring because I want to check for how much spring travel we're actually going to get. Because I don't want my spring to be traveling, you know, a ridiculous amount, because obviously that puts pressure on the spring that's not necessary. So we got our outline of the spring on there. What I want to do is take a look at it in the closed. It's on my line. Actuate the spring, close the knife, and then our top of our spring is still on that line. So that means in the open and closed position, we'll have a nice flush spring. There's a tool that you can use for this, but it's really expensive, and I don't really make enough of these to warrant buying a several $100 tool just for something that I could just spend a couple minutes doing. If I was making, 10 or 15 of these a week, I would definitely get that tool, but I'm not. So, all right, so now take the blade out, and I'm going to adjust down away from our line half the thickness of my pins. And these pins are 5/64 of an inch. So if I was trying to do some serious science, I would measure it and mark it and all that, but I'm not. So, and it looks like our handle scales aren't going to be quite big enough. So I gotta have a think real quick if I want to just drill this hole and reshape it, or I think I'm just going to drill the hole and reshape it, because the back of the knife is a little bit longer than it needs to be anyways. So get our clamp back on there on the front of the spring, and we will drill another hole. We're clamped, and I don't know if you can see the little bit of the overlap we have here, which is fine. I can just shake that off. But now I'm going to drill my hole in the back of the pin, or back for the rear pin. And that will be what gives us our spring tension. So come on now. Okay, so now I'm going to do a test fit up. I can't see the chat right now if you're asking a question. Give me 1 second. I'll put these pins in there, and then we'll go back over the table, and I'll answer any questions if there's questions. Usually this time of day it's a bunch of random nonsense. So let's see. No questions. All right, cool. So let's put this camera mount back to where I can see, and so basically, after drilling your 3 holes, all you have left to do now is just do your like dry fit ups and shape your springs and all that stuff to where it is going to live. So this camera mount is terrible, but that's all I got right now, because I broke the other one. I ordered it and broke it the day I got it. So shout out to Temu for providing crap quality products. So I'm eventually going to buy a nice one. I just needed one in a pinch, and you know how that goes. So now that we have our pinholes, spring tension is set, We're going to put in the blade, that pin, and then we'll put in the spring, and we're going to put in the back pin, and then the center pin should not line up. That's what provides your spring tension. So a nice tapered pin to go there and provide our tension. So there's that. And apparently I did something wrong because I have no spring tension, which is fine. Because honestly, I don't know if I'm going to use these handle scales because they're a little bit too small. So let's have a think. Don't know why I did that. In the spring, I guess. I'm gonna risk breaking it. That's probably what I'm gonna do. I'm probably gonna break the spring trying to do this, but the vise, and I'm gonna try to heat it and put a little bit of tension on the spring. I don't like doing this because it's almost always going to break the spring, so. Let's check our fitment now. Look for cracks, because that's pretty sketchy if you don't do that. Alright, so we'll pull our center pin out. Hopefully we have spring tension. If not, I will just remake these handle scales because these are probably going to be too small. Nope, didn't do anything. Not really sure what to do here. So I've got a little bit of gap in there. I don't really want to bend it too much. That's better. I'm scared I'm going to break it. One more time, and then I'm going to remake the spring, or the handle material, because honestly, it would be easier just to remake the handle scales at this point. Because I've got a little bit of spring tension, but not as much as I would want. I guess let's clamp up the handle scales to each other, do a dry fit up, and I guess I'll finish these scales, and if it doesn't come out the way I want it to, I'll just remake them. If I'm going to remake them anyway, I want to at least put these together and see if it will work. So let's do that, because I'm already here. So I'm gonna go with the drill press. I really don't like how short these handle scales are. Alright, so we will, this point, in our test drive, we'll, I'm going to put these pieces on there, mark out some lines to figure out, or to kind of show about where the knife is going to be and what material needs to come off. And then we can start getting a rough shape. That's what we're looking at. And I'm going to go over to probably the bandsaw. I think that'll be the quickest way to cut all of this, if it will cut it, because the blade is way past due needing to be changed. So it's got a spot in it that I knocked the teeth of it off, and it's not wanting to stay on. Keeps throwing itself off when it binds up. All right, so we're gonna we got the majority of that out of the way. We can finish shape. Alright, so now I'm going to put on a little bit fresher belt. It's
burn the wood. Then we'll start shaping them. Now that we've got our scales a little bit, I ain't gonna say they're there, but they're about where they need to be to where we can open and close the knife. We can pull this apart. I'm gonna cool down this liner one more time so the resin doesn't fall apart. Heat really, it doesn't like it. Okay, so we're gonna do another dry fit up. Spring. These pins are really sharp. I need to be careful. I'll put a hole in my finger again. Then we do blade. it does work. Check that out. So pretty much now we can start kind of getting it closer. I mean, really, that's all there is to it. The issue with doing folders, well, let me back up by saying the issue with doing folders and not knowing what you're doing, like myself, is you are at any given point throughout the build process one mistake away from having to start over, which is fun because I've done buku, like just ridiculous amounts of fixed blades since my last like major issue. So it kind of gets boring, you know. I'm not gonna say that I got it nailed down to a science and whatever, but once you kind of have a process, it's pretty easy to repeat. But with these, every single one of them is different, even if you're using a template. That is really cool though, to be able to do that. So what I'm going to do now is go over back to the belt while it's closed, and I'm going to take this down to the spring, clean that up back there. I'm dangerously close to the edge of that wood, so yeah, and my liners don't line up, so that's what's up, which means how close I am to the wood here. I could have made those even and I wouldn't be there, which I'm sure that when I put these together and planned this build out that I knew that, but I was so focused on that spring not working that I guess I missed it. But anyways, it's all good. This is a practice piece unless someone wants it. So what I'll do now, I've still got my pins in there. I'm gonna take this down and clean it up. So that's that. Now I'm going to take it back apart again, and I'm going to finish the blade. The blade is heat treat thickness, so the edge needs to come down some more, and then I've got to clean up the flats and make it all nice and shiny and all that good stuff. So pop this thing back apart, trying to break it. The center pin out. Pull these apart, stab myself with a really sharp pin. Alright, so now we're gonna go back over to the grinder and work on the blade some more. I don't know if this is boring to you guys, or you wanna talk about knives or something else or whatever. Let me know. I can see the chat now because I've got the camera in the correct orientation, but the filming angle kind of sucks, but there's really not much to see. I'm just gonna clean this finish up on that. This is kind of the boring part. Pretty much everything is done. This is just now we're doing rough fit ups and test fits and all that, and you know, the fit and finish part of it that, you know, isn't the most entertaining. To me, my favorite part is the design aspect of it, to kind of sketch it up and, you know, figure out your dimensions and the shape and all. To me, that's my favorite part, because that's just, to me, the hardest part, especially with folding knives, is having to decide on what you want to make and what it's going to look like, and then trying to figure out how to get it to work and fit together and everything. So, but anyways. I think I'm gonna pop this thing back in the temper, because that belt's not touching it. It's probably still way too hard. We'll file check it real quick. If it skates a file, I'm gonna go back to the temper. It doesn't need to be that hard. Yeah, it's still skating a file. So anyways, I'm gonna go back in the temper. That's it. Unless you guys have any questions, I'm gonna hop off here. I appreciate y'all for coming to hang out. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. We do giveaways on the channel. We give away knives. We do kitchen knives and like outdoor hunting knives and carry knives, and doing pocket knives right now or whatever. We do giveaways on the channel for subscribers. I'll do a build. Depending on the build, I'll get everyone's feedback and stuff, and we kind of figure out what all we want to do and decide on a knife, and we make it, and then I give it away to one of the subscribers. If you're interested in knives right now, I have some up on the website at littleriverforge.com. I believe it's in the page description or bio or whatever it's called. I have that there. There's a couple of shorts that I've done with stuff on there that are, they got links and stuff to the page, but it's littleriverforge.com. There's some stuff on there. Say what's up, drop a comment, how you doing, all that good stuff. Yeah, but anyways, I'm gonna hop off here. I'm gonna go throw this thing back in the temper, and I appreciate y'all.